How many times do we have such poor negative intentions when it comes to our friends? And how many times do we often assume the worst so quickly when it comes to our friends?
And we always tell people the cornerstone is two things, which is competence and respect. I'm not going to do business with someone just because we have a good relationship.
Yeah. If it came down to it where we had to choose between To My Sisters and our actual sisterhood, we're going to pick our sisterhood because TMS is a fruit of our relationship, our friendship.
We know co-founder breakups are so common.
Yeah.
What, in your perspective, is the number one thing that you think people are getting wrong?
I think a lot of people are picking wrong.
Don't ignore the signs of incompatibility just because you have hope in the potential for them to grow into what you need. And you can't expect an apple tree to produce oranges.
Hi, lovely people. Welcome to Cashing Up with Vidette, sponsored by Sorted Charlie. And today I'm so excited because my lovely guests here are real Charlies. Let me tell you, real Charlies. They're part of the community. We've been doing big things together for the last at least 2 years, right? We've been to places together. But I want to introduce my lovely guest, Courtney and Renee, to Cashing Up with Vidette. What's up, girl?
Hello, girl.
Yo.
Oh, hello.
Is this mic on?
The energy is given.
How are you?
I'm excellent. How are you, ladies?
Wow.
We're good.
Good.
We're doing
Listen,
good.
you girls you look like you need a holiday. Like, are you ready to go?
Is that your way of saying that we look tired?
Oh, no,
Yeah,
girl, I'm the tired one.
You would be right for that.
You are correct. You know what? Like, you didn't tell a lie.
Spot on diagnosis.
Okay, so next trip. Hello.
Well, if you go to sortedchalet.com / To My Sisters.
You might find the next place to find
Wait,
us.
but you guys were so fast with this advertising. Like, it's so crazy. Like,
It's a natural.
I actually want the audience to know that I didn't
Natural
plan
thing.
this.
No, not at all.
We're just natural when it
Yeah.
comes to these kind of things,
please.
you know?
Absolutely.
They better drop you your bag. ASAP.
No, it goes to show our relationship, right? That
I
we
love
actually get to travel with you, we get
Exactly.
to experience your magic in the travel world, as well as just you as a friend and as a sister, for real.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. But you guys are also very magical. And for those of you who are not listening, Courtney and Renee have an amazing podcast that is impacting so many women around the globe. And I say this not because, they're part of the Charlie community and I work closely with them, but I actually found you ladies through your podcast, right? I mean, Courtney, we've known each other for a minute, but I and still am a listener of the podcast, right?
a whole sister.
We are in the sisterhood, and I'm so proud of you because you guys have really showed us what sisterhood looks like, both in love and friendship, but also in business. Because you girls are standing on business.
Hello, somebody.
We're trying our best.
So, I'm not going to waste too much time. I think I want to talk to you guys about like your friendship. Cashing Up with Vidette is really a podcast, not just about people's journeys, but everything that is around the journey. We're so quick to talk about how did you build your business, how you making money, but nobody is talking about the things that actually make us move and actually make these things a reality. So, hello guys, you guys have been friends for such a long time.
Yeah.
What has it
now.
been like just experiencing your sisterhood together?
A journey. It's been a journey.
Great
yeah.
question.
I think a lot of people think our friendship emerged when we started the podcast, but it predates it by decades.
Literally.
Like, we've been best friends for 6 years. We started the podcast in 2020, the same year that Sorted Chalet was birthed as well. And it was just a manifestation of things that we had been building for a long time in terms of our intimacy and our relationship of actual sisterhood and depending on each other for such a long time. And we were just having conversations that we organically would,
Literally.
on phone calls, over Nando's. Like, we just translated that onto microphones. And I guess we got to then share our friendship with the whole world. But yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that meme that's like, oh, me and my best friend, if we got a podcast, we'd end up in jail. I am so surprised that we're still here and we have not been caught by the feds. But alas, it means we're doing something correct. And I think it is a testament to, obviously, the people that we are, that To My Sisters is a thing, right? It's a beautiful thing, but it really is a fruit of the relationship that we have. And I think that in of itself is really innovative in today's society, within the world of content, to actually have a functioning relationship, especially a platonic functioning relationship, because it's something that we often don't see championed in these spaces. So
I love that. And I think what's so interesting is you guys are living a lot of people's dreams. Everyone, like when you have FaceTime calls with your girls, you just think your conversations are so different and elevated. You're like, put this on the damn podcast. Come on, like my conversations with my girls are different. So you are in many ways living everyone's dream, whether they take it seriously or not. But for the most part, I definitely have conversations on FaceTime and I'm like, dang, this would be a hit podcast. Hello. But I think it's really great. But one thing that has always struck me about your relationship, and this is obviously because of my personal life experience, right? I did start my business with someone, and this person was my friend for a very long time. Unfortunately, that relationship doesn't exist any longer. So I see you guys and I'm truly inspired because I don't think there's any pride in choosing to start businesses with your friends or choosing to start initiatives with your friends and not having them by your side as you grow that initiative, right? So that's actually something I look at you ladies and like, I feel so much pride and I'm proud of you guys for achieving, but I'm like, dang, how did these women do this? Because are you familiar with Michelle Obama's quote where she says like she and Obama, marriage is not a hunt, like everyone brings 50-50. Sometimes I'm bringing 70 and sometimes you're bringing 30. And you just have to live with it. And that's the reality of business because business is like marriage. Starting a community with your best friend is like marriage. How do you guys navigate your marriage?
Oh, geez.
And you know what? That's how we get allegations, right? That's how. Genuinely, that's how we get.
People be sticking it on us.
Not the Gail and Oprah allegations.
Yeah, we get the allegations for real. And I think it's actually interesting because I think when you think of marriage, like marriage is a covenant, and I think we see our friendship as like a covenant relationship, like we're destiny besties, like we're here doing friendship, not just in a way that is I like you, you like me, we get on, we share similarities, or even in a you have strengths, I have strengths, but really our faith underpins it in terms of like God has really brought us together and spiritually we feel like we're heading in the same direction. We're called to help each other in some ways, and our dedication to making sure that each of us becomes who God wants us to be and who we envision ourselves being is far greater than our own egos or our own pride. And it's a learning curve for each of us as well. Where it's like, okay, you have to bite back your tongue because it's not just business, it's actually your friendship that's on the line if you decide to push too far, you know? And so I think it's molded us. And I think the first thing we always tell people when they ask us, like, how have you been able to do this? Because there's the typical, you cannot do business with your friends, you cannot do business with your family. And we always tell people the cornerstone is two things, which is competence and respect. I'm not going to do business with someone just because we have a good relationship. I need to know this person is actually competent in what they do. And I always tell people when it comes to Renee, even if I had not known Renee for all that time, she would have still been my first pick for a co-founder. It doesn't change. It doesn't change anything. And so one is competence. A lot of us go wrong in business with friends or family because they're not actually qualified to do the work. The only thing that qualifies them is their position in our lives.
Facts.
That's how they'll lose their position and their position in your business at the same time. And the second being respect, 1,000%. And the second being respect, which is, like I said, outside of our business conversations, as a person, I still respect you. And also within our business, I respect that because you are competent, I can leave something to you and I don't have to micromanage you. I don't need to, call you out of your name because I know you've got this. And also I respect our relationship and the history we've built with each other enough to know there are some lines you don't cross and some things you just don't say because, like I said, there's more on the line than just money. It's actually your friendship with someone that's lasted a very long time. And that's worth much more.
Wow.
Oh, that was so beautiful. And literally when you were speaking about covenant, that was literally the first word that popped into my head. Understanding that this is actually a relationship worth having. Because I do think that, especially for a lot of women, their friends and their friendships feel very throwaway. And there's no way, there's nothing can come between me and Courtney right now that I would literally be like, I'm going to throw Courtney away. So even if, I often say this, if it came down to it where we had to choose between To My Sisters and our actual sisterhood, we're going to pick our sisterhood. Because TMS is a fruit of our relationship, our friendship, the things that we believe that God has called us to do. And for us to deprioritize that, it means that we wouldn't be able to work in so many other areas. So actually seeing friendship as something that has empowered business as opposed to something that would be a negative factor has been such an important catalyst for some of the great things that we've been able to do and achieve. And I think I love that you said respect. I think also genuine love and care for one another. I think sometimes we can get so down and bogged into the details around business and wanting to be profitable and all of these really exciting boss babe terminologies that we use around building something big with somebody, but genuinely having love for the person that you are working with, superseding all of the things that you want to produce with them is so, so important, because it's from that place that you'll actually be able to pour out into the business that you want to grow and develop anyways. And we also have a rule between us, which is assume the best of intentions. How many times do we have such poor negative intentions when it comes to our friends? And how many times do we often assume the worst so quickly when it comes to our friends? But, I love that quote by Michelle Obama, because that's life. It's real.
So real.
We're not going to be 100% all the time. We're not going to be able to offer 50%, right? Like there'll be some times where the only thing I have to give is 10%. It's
Literally.
a solid 10%, but baby, that's all I have to give. And vice versa. There'll be times where Courtney only has 20% to give, 30% to give, but it's understanding that this endeavor that we're doing together is an endeavor we're doing together. So it may look like, okay, for this period of time, I'm going to cover the deficit. And then when your season comes up, when you're up and I'm down, then you cover the deficit.
Yeah.
It's that simple. But I think it takes a certain level of selflessness. And it's funny because business, people often approach it with such selfishness in mind. But it's actually taking a selfless approach that has really enabled our relationship and this business to flourish.
That is so interesting to me. And it's interesting to me for a couple of reasons. You mentioned some amazing points, the point around competence and respect. You do need a combination of both.
Absolutely.
You can't respect someone if you don't feel like they're being competent in the relationship. And then the second thing that you mentioned was, putting your relationship first. So you mentioned, respect and competence. I think that those were like two very important points. And you also mentioned putting your friendship first, right? And I think that's really interesting and a bit controversial in many ways, right? I, like I mentioned earlier on, started my business with someone who is no longer, within the business. But for me, one of the biggest challenges, and maybe there's some reflection I've done in the process, is it's very hard to put your friendship first in a space where, profitability matters, where you need to make that bag, right? And I think, and I wonder in many ways, do you think that is influenced because of your relationship with God in your friendship? Because not everybody has that, right? Is there a world where people have businesses with their friends and survive if they don't have the same, power backing them the way you guys do? The power is backing everyone, but is everyone tapping into it?
Oh, that's a great question.
Very deep.
I know, I'm smarter.
You really are. You really are. I don't actually think it's necessarily the power that's backing us. I think it's the power we've chosen to surrender to. I think it's more so about the fact we share principles that ground us and that we obey and yield to. And I think that allows us to come with that posture of humility that business sometimes requires you to have, or friendship requires you to have. That posture of selflessness, as you were mentioning, or care and loving people and assuming the best, or forgiveness and all the other virtues that go into making a relationship or a friendship work. Before we even engage in a conflict, we've already had that self-regulation because we're standing on a certain principle and we're standing on a certain foundation, and we regulate ourselves according to that. So I think because we have that code of conduct, or we have, our personal values that we have carried into this relationship, there are a lot of things that don't escalate to conflict. So there are a lot of conversations we don't even have, even if we are feeling some type of way, because we've prayed about it, or, we've journaled about it, or we told God about it, and God has told us, don't push it, you know, or leave it, or go and do this instead. Like I remember there was a day that like work can get a lot, and sometimes it's hard to balance friendship, business partners, friends. Well, sometimes in some seasons we're more business partners than we are friends, and in others with, vice versa. And there was a day that I was coming home and God was like, you need to buy Renee a Magnum ice cream. And I was like, why? I'm tired. So, and I literally just brought her one, and she was having a, rubbish day. So it's stuff like that. I think having spirituality guide us as well as giving us values to share, and that we share has helped us navigate our relationship and really de-escalate so many situations for me.
So many situations. Also, when you got me that Magnum, let me tell you something. It'd be the small stuff.
The small thing.
But it just goes to show how sensitive you have to be when you are in a relationship of any kind. The sensitivity, but also I love that you mentioned humility. I think, and I also love the way that you phrased that around surrender as opposed to having power behind you, because I think that's the problem that often many people have is they're seeking power. But
this message
is all.
Go there.
One thing about seeking power is you will find yourself disempowered, or you won't have any longevity because there's something about surrender. There's something about doing the individual work first before coming together that will really empower you anyways. So I also love that you mentioned self-regulation. Like, if individually we are not committed to doing the work on ourselves, then it will be a catastrophe when we're collective. You have to do the work on yourself first before you engage in any kind of relationship with whether it's a co-founder. We often use it in the romantics. Do the work, girls, for your husband, etc. But we also need to normalize, especially if we are going to go into business, doing the work for our friends and doing the work for our business partners. And because we actually prioritize doing the work individually, when we do come together, there's so much synergy. There's so much value alignment. Even when we say, value alignment, really having the receipts to say, I've actually observed Courtney. I've spent time with Courtney. I know that she says a value, but she also lives it out. And I think there's something about observing people as well that's really, really important, and seeing what receipts do I have that show that what they say about their character is actually true in the fruit of their character, right? So I think because we are so committed to doing the individual work, but also because we have seen each other in so many situations in a variety of circumstances, it means that when we come together, there is power between us because we are powered by our individual endeavors. We are powered by our individual desire to serve one another. Being service-oriented as opposed to being power-oriented will actually empower you a lot more, which is completely countercultural, but
that is so powerful. The word power in this conversation is so powerful because I do reflect and I do think that there were times where service wasn't at the core of certain things, right? And I do think that the power dynamics in any relationship, if it's not one of servitude towards each other, is very important. And I love that you're saying any relationship, because sometimes we do view business relationships as different from, romantic relationships, marriages. But a lot of people who are co-founders will say this feels like a marriage, right? So you guys are completely spot on. But in the interest of time, I do want to ask you a question, because we know co-founder breakups are so common. What, in your perspective, is the number one thing that you think people are getting wrong?
That's a hot question.
That is a very hot question.
We better wrap it up with that one.
What is the biggest thing people are getting wrong?
Thing.
I think they're picking wrong. I think a lot of people are picking wrong. In that, people go in. People go in and they haven't actually considered the cost. If more people considered what it would cost them to not only be in business with this person or be in a business relationship with them, but also to lose them, they wouldn't start the journey in the first place. They would pick the right person with more discernment and with more wisdom. And I think they would know that they're going to have to do the selfless stuff and the hard stuff before they even started the journey. And they would fix their mind on that. And even when the journey gets hard, they would remind themselves that this is what I signed up for. So I feel like they wouldn't give up as quickly. What do you think?
I think, kind of connected to what you were saying, we ignore the signs. So I know I've mentioned fruit a couple of times, but the image that I conjured up in my head was that of a baby apple tree, right? You may be looking for an orange tree, but you saw the apple tree and you said, I have hope that they'll be able to produce this specific fruit that I'm looking for, or this specific, quality or whatever that I'm looking for. And they have the potential to bear something that's quite juicy, tasty. I love it. Maybe at some point later down the line, they'll be able to do this for me, based off of the potential of them producing an apple. But you can't expect an apple tree to produce oranges. And I think sometimes our expectations versus what people are actually able to deliver will set us up for disappointment later down the line. Because the person will have grown, and I'm sure the person will grow into a wonderful, fruitful apple tree, but you wanted to work with someone that could produce an orange or produce oranges. So they're giving you all of these apples, all of these things, but it's still not what you actually need, and you're actually not compatible. So don't ignore the signs of incompatibility just because you have hope in the potential for them to grow into what you need. And I think also equally, us being aware of what it is that we produce to you. Right. I think sometimes we can lay it on so thick on other people. We're like, oh, I need this person to produce this. I need this person to be this. I need this person to be so competent in these areas because we have this false perception that we are perfect, that we are competent.
The false perception is crazy.
False perceptions and expectations that we have of ourselves to be able to bring that 100% every single day. Yeah. If you were somebody that was truly self-aware, you'd also be picking other people based on your weaknesses and actually knowing, okay, what's my weakness? Yeah. I'm going to pair with somebody that's actually strong in this area. Absolutely. That means that we're covered. I'm aware of my weakness, but it also means there's no deficits across the business, but also this relationship. Yeah. So that the weight of false expectations, but also the lack of self-awareness that we have for ourselves and the expectations that we have that we don't even meet.
Wow. And I think you're right about that, because when you find someone who complements your weaknesses, you value them more. Yes. And a lot of these relationships are littered with a lack of value for each other. So, like those insights are so phenomenal. And I do think that you guys actually need to start making a bag from consulting people on co-founder relationships, because it's really tough,
Not
right?
Friendship therapy.
Yeah. Friendship therapy, business therapy, everything. Because I do think that to look across the room and see your friend on the laptop working with you on a project, that is one of the joys of life, that you can pick your business partner. You can pick your colleague, because not everybody sits across the office from someone they like. Yeah. They cannot wait to clock out.
True.
So for me, I think there's so much to admire about your relationship. And I'm sure there are so many facets that you guys can talk about. Yeah. But in the interest of time, we got to wrap up. But thank you, ladies, so much for the gems, because many, many gems have been dropped. And if someone doesn't get the gems, then this was not for you. Goodbye. No, but thank you guys, and we definitely need a part 2, potentially in Ghana.
Let's do it.
We'll do a part 2 in Ghana whilst we sip on some coconut juice. Oh, that's a promise. I can already see the vision already. Yeah, amazing. Thank you guys for tuning in to Cashing Up with Vidette, and we are excited for the next episode.